What's the best way to learn PKing in old school RuneScape? LMS? Rev caves? Maybe wildy bosses? I honestly don't know. I'm still learning myself, and the deeper I get into PvP, the more complex it becomes. I've thought a lot about how to make a useful guide for new PKers, but with so much to learn, no single video can realistically cover everything. So instead, this series will cover PvP one piece at a time. Over multiple videos, we'll break down the basics, slowly and properly. I'm not a PvP prodigy, and that's exactly the point. My mistakes are still fresh, and I've learned a lot from them. Hopefully, so will you. This is a noob's guide to the wilderness. We've all seen this message appear in the chat box, only to look up and see that a max PKer has decided to cast his hungry eyes on a poor soul. From this point on, it's all about escaping. There's a bunch of different factors deciding whether you'll be able to avoid death in these situations, and as long as you're new, remembering everything is impossible. Last time we took care of tanking, but no matter how well you tank, you will need to get the PKer off your back at some point. So this time, we'll focus on the escape itself. Escaping is an absolutely essential part of PvP, but it's especially important for new PKers, since your first wilderness trips most likely results in losing a lot of fights. So the need for an escape is a very common occurrence. Being able to tank is the first and most important aspect, because if you forget to eat while trying to freeze or run away, there's a good chance you'll just die. For a deeper dive into the specific of tanking, I'll refer to the previous video, but just always remember to still keep HP high and switch your prayers while you go for your escape. There are 4 main ways of escaping in the wilderness. Running to safety, tanking a teleblock, getting gap and logout using surroundings such as stairs, doors or agility shortcuts, and freeze logging. The first 3 are all fairly similar, they're easier to learn but have their limitations in terms of not working in all scenarios. Freeze logging on the other hand is harder to master, but can get you an escape in every single situation. It does also require you to bring freezes, so if you're not tri-breeding, the first 3 options will have to suffice. Since there is a lot to discuss regarding escapes, I've decided to divide it into 2 separate videos. This one is about escaping in general, and the other one will handle freeze logging specifically, which is by far the most complicated technique. Consequently, the strategies in this video will apply to PKers, PVMers and anti-PKers alike, while the other one will mainly be useful for tri-bred PKers. Before actually executing your escape, the decision of how to play it has to be made. And this is a very important decision. If the PKer can only attack you for 1 wilderness level and you have a full inventory of food, there is no reason to go for a freeze log or juke him around obstacles. All you need to do is tank him for 1 freeze, run south and you're safe. On the other hand, if you're fully TB'd and level 29 wildy with 5 fish, you're not making the run all the way to GE, so you'll have to find another way. Whenever the need for an escape is apparent, finding the easiest possible option for your specific situation is the first thing you should consider. And that brings us to the simplest strategy, just running to safety. If you're close to a spot where the PKer can't attack you or where you can teleport from, all you need to do is keep your HP high, stay in your tank and run towards safety as soon as your freeze expires. All things I covered in the tanking video. If the PKer is in good gear and gets the RNG he needs, you can still get KO'd, but if you stay calm and focus on tanking well, the odds of that happening are in many cases not that high. When to go for this kind of escape depends on all kinds of things, like distance to safety, how much food you have left, PKer skill, your own tanking ability, and much more. So it's hard to set up guidelines for. But as soon as you've tanked a few decent PKers, you'll get a feel for when running to safety is a realistic possibility. In general, as long as you have a decent amount of food left, you should be able to tank for around 10 to 15 wilderness levels without much trouble. This still depends heavily on the PKer's gear, especially max DPS setups with Bofa and Noxious Halberd can give you trouble even with a short getaway. But you'll learn that over time, just always remember the runaway as the easiest and simplest escape option, if you have it within reach. When PKing below level 30 wilderness, the PKers you run into will always use teleblock. You should handle this in the exact same way as when running to safety. Just stay in your tank, keep HP high and focus on your prayers. In these scenarios, it's a good idea to juke the PKer around on stairs or agility shortcuts if you have them nearby, since it's harder for the average PKer to deal as much DPS to you if he also has to navigate a bunch of obstacles in the process. As I talked about in the tanking video, just standing still makes it way easier for a PKer to hit you off prayer and maximize damage. so just try and make the kill as annoying as possible while you wait for the teleblock to run out. Now, the most important question when taking a TB is usually if you can count on the timer to expire before you run out of food. When a teleblock lands successfully on a player, it will last for 5 minutes unless the target has Protect from Magic on, in which case it's only a half TB lasting for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. This makes the entire difference regarding your odds of escaping. 5 minutes is a pretty long time, and even a full inventory of food is oftentimes not enough to live for that long. So when you see the 5-minute TB land, just taking it out shouldn't be the first thing on your mind. Taking a half TB on the other hand is quite manageable, so if you're fully stacked on supplies, you can usually just focus on not getting KO'd and you should be fine. Exactly as with running to safety, this is still highly situational, and PKers in max gear might easily be able to run you out of food in less than 2.5 minutes. But if he's in solid ropes, he might need way more than 5 to take you out. Still, as a general rule of thumb, you can count on surviving a half TB in most situations, but rarely a full one. If you get caught way north of the 30 line with little food in your invent, just running south won't do you much, and you'll have to resort to a more advanced option. If running or teleporting isn't realistic, there is only one way left to escape, and that is logging out. Before we get into the different ways of getting a logout successfully, let's begin by explaining how logouts work in PvP. As you all probably know, when a player is in combat with a monster or another player, logging out is not possible. Every time you take a hit from someone, a timer of 9.6 seconds or 16 game ticks prevents you from logging out. This resets every time you take a hit, but does not reset when you hit your opponent. So in order to escape by logging out, you need a way to avoid taking hits for 9.6 seconds. The first way to do this is getting gapped by using obstacles, shortcuts, exits, or any similar action that takes the player a little while to process. You essentially just use the same obstacle back and forth until you see a window where the PKer seems to be late, and then go for the run. Any spell in the game has an attack range of 10 tiles, so in order to get gap on the PKer, you'll need to be at least 11 tiles away. Once that is achieved, you essentially just have to keep running directly away from your aggressor and just continuously hit the logout button while you're running. In any normal world in a single combat area, you can always get the logout before anyone else can attack you. So don't get stressed if the guy's entire team is circling around you and flaming you in Venezuelan, they can't do anything to you. Just keep hitting the logout button and you'll always get it. The only thing you can't do is stopping or changing direction so the PKer can close the distance and hit you again. In PvP or Bounty Hunter worlds, however, the PJ timer is shorter and other players will be able to hit you before you can log out. This makes logout escapes next to impossible against teams. Not something you should worry too much about, but keep it in mind when you hop to these worlds. Let's take a deeper look at how to use obstacles for escaping. In today's wilderness, some exits around PK hotspots have been changed to where the entrance and exit are at 2 different locations. This means there will be fewer places where you can go up or down the same staircase or ladder to juke the PKer around. Although there are still a bunch of locations where this is an option, such as the ladder in the agility arena or the escape caves around the wildy bosses. Juking like this is probably the least effective if getting gap is the objective, since the action of going in and out takes quite a short amount of time, so even though you get a good window for escaping, the PKer can most likely still make it to barrage distance if he's not fumbling completely. Still, if you find yourself around one of these exits and don't have anywhere to run, you might as well give it a shot. You may not get gap, but doing this can still kill a lot of the PKer's momentum, and it's just really annoying to play against. The most effective juke you can do around these newer exit designs, where the exit is at a different place, is actually just faking the exit. This is an extremely simple escape trick, but it can work surprisingly well, especially against inexperienced PKers like myself. Just click the tile right next to the exit and stay there, and if the PKer haven't killed many PVMers in his life, he will often just take the exit out of muscle memory, only to realize he's alone out there, and the option to go back in the cave is nowhere to be found. The escape is guaranteed at this point. This trick never really works on advanced PKers, but it's always worth going for in my opinion. Even if he doesn't fall for it, you can still stand at the tile fairly safely, as freezing you here does nothing. If you get frozen right next to an exit, you can just use it right as the freeze lands and enjoy a free 3 seconds of immunity on the other side. In my experience, the best obstacles to juke on is agility shortcuts. The reason is that the animation of an agility shortcut often takes a little while, so if you can catch the PKer jumping the wrong way or being late at any point, you'll have more time to run before he can start chasing, increasing your chance of getting gap. These agility rocks in the ref caves are an excellent juking tool. Good PKers will know how to navigate these, but if you run into a noob like myself, just jumping these once or twice can easily be enough to send your aggressor sideways. Another really annoying mechanic from a PKer perspective is the fact that if you're not in range on the other side of the shortcut, the game will have you ice skating all the way around, basically guaranteeing the escape. When doing this, you won't have to do too much. Just use the shortcut back and forth until you see the PKer being in the middle of an action, whether that be jumping in the opposite direction or going for a freeze across the shortcut. It is however very important that you keep your HP out of KO range, at least for rage and mage hits. The reason is that as long as you are in the middle of an agility animation, you won't be able to eat until you're on the other side. So if you take a shortcut on 30 to 40 HP and get hit mid-animation, you will always die if the damage is high enough. There is no way to eat this, not even with a fish. But again, just another reason to always keep HP high, nothing you haven't heard before. Juking around like this is something I'd always advise. As I talked about in the tanking video, the more you can annoy the PKer by making him have to move, refreeze, change attack styles and jump in and out of exits and obstacles, the less he'll be able to strictly focus on DPSing you. So if you're tanking a TB or trying to stall out time for other reasons, this is always a good idea. Skilled PKers will usually know how to deal with it and won't give up any easy escapes due to misclicks and bad timing, but they will still be hindered way more than if you just stood still or ran in the same direction. And against bad PKers, this works way better than you'd imagine. It took me a long time of PKing in the ref caves before I stopped giving up easy escapes to just the simplest misdirections, jukes and exit fakes. How to learn the PKer side of this is a subject for another video, but make sure to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see that as well. There are also places where you can sometimes get the logout without having gap. The tensile range have to be a straight line from caster to target. So if there is anything blocking the path, the PKer might not be able to cast spells in time before you can log out. Luckily, the ref caves have tons of narrow corridors to run into, and also contain these large blocks in the middle of tunnels that you can sometimes just run around until the logout timer expires. At Wildy Overworld, you'll find a lot of large groupings of trees that you can also use for this.
Tree? I am no tree. I am an ant.
If you haven't been attacked for a few seconds, simply running into these is sometimes enough to get a quick logout without the PKer even realizing it was an option. And even if you don't get the logout, it's still another way to make it harder for the PKer to DPS you effectively. The last escape option worth mentioning is to just run multi. Assuming you don't have a team to back you up, this is obviously a very risky play, since you have no idea whether the PKer has friends coming. But neither does he. Especially if the PKer is risking a lot, there's a good chance he won't send it to multi on his own just for a few mils worth of loot. If you feel comfortable escaping in another way, running multi shouldn't be the first thing on your mind. But in situations where you have little fish left and your chances of survival already seems minimal, this could give you an easy escape if the PKer decides not to risk it. It's an option that many people, including myself, often forget, but an option that might get you out of an otherwise hopeless situation without really having to do anything. Overall, there are a bunch of different ways to pull off these herky-jerky escapes using different parts of the environment, and you'll learn how to navigate them naturally when you PK at their respective locations. Just make it a habit to look at your surroundings when you get attacked to see if there's anything you can exploit. That about does it for the simple escape options. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave it a like and stay tuned for more content. Next time, we'll dive into what is perhaps the most foundational concept in PKing: switches.